The sound of Emma's knees hitting the saloon floor echoed through the Crystal Palace like a gunshot. The sour reek of whiskey and cigar smoke hung in the air. Even the out-of-tune piano fell silent. Every head turned. Jacob Thornton, the most feared rancher in Tombstone, stood over her like the devil himself. "Your daddy owed me $5,000, Jake said. "Now that old fool's dead, and that debt, it belongs to you." Emma's hands trembled as she looked up at him. 51, weathered by the Arizona sun, eyes cold as winter steel. "Please," she whispered. "My father just died 3 weeks ago. I have nothing. Jake threw a paper down. It landed in front of her face. "That's a contract, girl. Says right there you belong to me now. 5 years of work at my ranch, no pay. Just room and board till that debt's settled." The room gasped. Emma grabbed the paper. "This can't be legal. This can't legal." Jake laughed. "Harsh. Sheriff Bennett himself witnessed your daddy's signature on the loan. It's as legal as it gets in Arizona territory." Emma looked around desperately. Ranchers, cowboys, gamblers, working girls, pity in their eyes. But no one moved, because everyone knew you didn't cross Jake Thornton. A few even looked almost satisfied. Her father had spent his last months bad-mouthing Jake in every saloon, and folks told themselves this was just his debts catching up with his kin. "I won't do it," Emma said. "You can't make me." Jake's smile vanished. He turned to one of his men. "Cole, show her what happens when people don't pay their debts." Cole stepped forward, holding something. Emma's heart dropped. The mortgage note on her father's ranch, the paper that said the land was the price of his debt. The last thing her family owned in this world. "No." Emma lunged, but Jake caught her hair, yanking her back down. "Watch," he said. Cole tore the note in half, then in half again. The pieces drifted to the dirty saloon floor. Emma screamed as her father's legacy was ripped to shreds. "You're mine now," Jake growled, forcing her to look at him. "From this moment on, you're nothing but property, my property, and if you so much as think about running, I'll make sure you regret the day you were born." He let go. Emma collapsed on the torn pieces of the note, sobbing. The saloon stayed silent. No one helped her. No one dared. But what none of them knew, not even Emma, was that everything they'd just witnessed was a lie. And if they'd known the truth that night, half the men in that room would have run for the door. And the real monster wasn't the man standing over her. So why would Jake Thornton destroy a young woman's life so publicly, so cruelly? What was he really protecting her from? The wagon ride to Thornton Ranch felt like a journey to hell. Emma sat in the back, hands bound with rough rope. Cole driving up front. The Arizona sun beat down as Tombstone shrank behind them. She'd cried herself empty. Now there was only numbness, and beneath it, a burning hatred. The ranch rose on the horizon like a fortress, Jake Thornton's kingdom. Cole pulled the wagon to a stop. "Get out." Ranch hands stopped to stare. 15 rough men, all loyal to Jake. Jake stepped onto the porch, put her to work. Stables cleaned, horses groomed, dinner for all the men by 6. If she's slow, she doesn't eat. "Yes, sir," Cole said. "I don't know how to cook for 15 people, Emma blurted. Then you better learn fast." Jake's eyes were ice. "You work or you starve. That's it." The first day was torture. Her hands blistered. Her back screamed, "Yes, sir." And by the time she reached the kitchen, she had 2 hours to cook a meal she didn't know how to make. The biscuits burned. The beans were hard. The coffee tasted like dishwater. Jake took one bite, then hurled his plate against the wall. "You think this slop is fit for my men?" "I tried. I don't care about trying, huh?" he roared. "Every meal you ruin is another week added to your contract. You understand me?" "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, what?" "Yes, sir." That night, they locked her in a tiny room with a thin mattress and a barred window. From downstairs, she heard Jake's voice, loud and angry. A bottle smashed, nervous laughter. She pulled her knees to her chest. This was her life now, no escape. Then something strange happened. Through the thin walls, she heard Jake again, softer this time, and Cole's reply, "You sure about this, boss? That show tonight? Breaking the plate? Might have been too much. Jake's answer was barely a breath. Just stick to the plan. We don't have much time. Emma pressed her ear to the wall, heart pounding. Plan? What plan? The more she tried to shove those words aside, the louder they scratched at the back of her mind. 3 days passed like 3 years. Emma worked from sunrise to sundown. Her hands were raw and bleeding. On the second day, Jake shoved a rifle into her hands on the way to the corral. Coyotes don't care that you're grieving, he said. If you're going to live out here, you learn to shoot. Her father had taught her to knock tin cans off fence posts when she was 12. The weight of the gun wasn't new, but Jake kept her firing at bottles until her shoulder bruised. She'd thought it was just another way to break her. You call this clean? He'd drag a finger through dust. Do it again. This coffee tastes like mud. He'd dump it out. Make it again. Every word another lash, yet somewhere beneath the cruelty, the way he kept watching the horizon made it feel like he was waiting for a storm only he could see. And still, his whisper haunted her stick to the plan. On the 4th day, Sheriff Thomas Bennett rode up. Emma looked up from scrubbing the porch. The silver star on his chest flashed in the sun. Late 40s, kind eyes, and a reputation as the most honest lawman in Arizona, the kind of man people trusted too easily. Something in the way his gaze lingered on the house made her stomach tighten. Jake Thornton, Bennett said, dismounting. Heard you got yourself some new help. News travels fast, Jake replied. Maybe too fast. Bennett's eyes moved to Emma. That's William Carter's daughter. The man just died 3 weeks ago, Jake. And here she is, scrubbing your floors like a servant. She's paying off her daddy's debt, Jake said coldly. All legal and proper. Legal don't always mean right. Bennett stepped closer to Emma, voice soft. Miss Carter, are you being treated fairly here? Emma opened her mouth. This was her chance. One honest word from her and the entire ugly performance in the saloon could start to unravel. Then she met Jake's eyes. There was something there, not a threat. Almost pleading. She swallowed. I'm fine, Sheriff. Just working off what's owed. Bennett didn't look convinced. If that changes, you come find me. I don't care whose debt it is. After he left, Emma braced herself for punishment. Get back to work, was all Jake said. That night, heavy footsteps pounded up the stairs. Her door flew open. Jake filled the doorway, the smell of whiskey pouring in with him. He was drunk. Or he looked it. Please, Emma gasped, backing against the wall. Please don't. Jake grabbed her collar and yanked her close. You know what I could do to you. You know nobody would stop me. Not Bennett. Not anyone in this whole damn territory. His fist twisted in her dress, but his hand shook, knuckles white with effort. For a heartbeat, his gaze flinched away from her face, like he couldn't stand the man he was pretending to be. Emma shook so hard she could barely breathe. Then Jake shoved her away, spun, and punched the wall. His fist went straight through the plaster. He stood there, chest heaving, knuckles bleeding, then walked out without a word. Emma crumpled to the floor, sobbing. She'd just escaped something terrible. But why had he stopped? Monsters didn't pull back at the last second, unless they were pretending to be something even worse than they really were. Now, before we go any further, do me a favor. Pour yourself a drink, get comfortable, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. And hey, if this story has you hooked so far, hit that subscribe button, because what Emma was about to discover in Jake's study would change everything. If you think you've already picked a side in this story, you might want to hold off for just a minute. 2 nights later, Emma made a decision. If she couldn't escape, she'd at least find something she could use against him. It was midnight when she crept down the stairs. The ranch house creaked inside, but no one stirred. Jake's study door was unlocked. Inside, she found it, an old wooden chest in the corner, full of letters, yellowed with age. They were between Jake and her father. 25 years of friendship, war, cavalry days, not just acquaintances, brothers. The last letter, dated 2 months before her father died, made her blood run cold. Sheriff Bennett and and his men running guns to the Apache, trying to start another war for profit. His honest lawman image the perfect cover. Sabotage around the ranch, not accidents, and one last plea: if something happens to me, protect Emma. Don't let her know the truth. She'll do something reckless. You're the only man I trust. The pistol slipped from Emma's hand and clattered on the floor. So you finally found them? She spun. Jake stood in the doorway, looking bone-tired. My father, Emma whispered. You and him. You were best friends for 30 years, Jake said. He saved my life twice in the war. I owed him everything. Then why? She choked. Why didn't you tell me? Why make everyone think? Because Bennett killed your father, Jake said. And you were next on his list. Emma's vision blurred. What? Sheriff Bennett, the one man she'd secretly hoped would save her, had been the blade at her father's throat the whole time. I've been sending copies of everything I could prove to a U.S. Marshal named James Earp. Jake went on. If we're lucky. He's already riding this way. If we're not. It's just us when Bennett comes. That debt. His voice hardened. I made it up. The whole thing was a lie. The real deed to your father's land has been in my safe since the day he signed it. When this is over, that land is yours again. It always was. Sheriff Bennett never witnessed a damn thing that day. I used his name because folks still trust that badge. I had to get you out of town, somewhere I could watch you every hour. If you'd stayed in Tombstone, you'd be dead by now. The saloon, Emma whispered. You destroying the note? Humiliating me. Had to make it convincing, Jake said. And for the first time she heard the pain under the steel. Had to make Bennett and everyone else believe you were worthless and just property, not worth killing. Emma's gaze flicked to the hole in the wall. You weren't drunk, she said. No. Bennett's men were scouting the ranch. I had to put on a show. His jaw clenched. I punched that wall because I hated myself for scaring you like that. Emma's legs gave out. She sank to the floor, letters scattering like fallen leaves. Every cruel moment replayed in her mind and shifted, every insult, every order. A shield. I'm sorry, Jake said, kneeling beside her. I'm so damn sorry, but I made your father a promise. I'd keep you safe, no matter what it made me look like. For the first time, Emma saw past the monster everyone feared and into the man underneath, lonely, grieving, stubbornly loyal. She reached for his scarred hand. Thank you for not giving up on me. Horses thundered outside. Get behind the desk. Now, Jake snapped. Gunshots exploded. Glass shattered. Men shouted in the yard. Bennett figured it out, Jake said, loading his rifle. He knows you know the truth. Cole burst in. Boss, 12 men. Maybe more. They got us surrounded. Get the boys armed and positioned, Jake ordered. This is what we trained for. He shoved a Winchester into Emma's hands. Remember what I taught you? She flashed back to the bottles on the fence, the achy in her shoulder. He hadn't been mocking her. He'd been training her. Aim center mass. He said. Breathe. Then pull. Bennett's men came from 3 sides. 8 ranch hands and 1 wounded Promise stood against them. Emma saw Jake take a bullet to the side. Blood bloomed across his shirt. She didn't think. She moved. Raised the rifle, aimed at the man flooding through the barn door, and fired. The recoil rocked her, but he went down. Good girl, Jake gasped. For a heartbeat. That scrap of praise hit her harder than the kick of the rifle. Over the roar of gunfire came another sound, a deeper, steadier thunder of hooves rolling in from the ridge. U.S. Marshals, a voice boomed. Drop your weapons. 15 federal marshals poured into the yard, led by a man with a gleaming badge, Marshal James Earp. Bennett and his men froze, surrounded. You can't do this, Bennett shouted. I'm the sheriff of Tombstone. Not anymore, Earp said. We've got a warrant from the territorial governor. You're under arrest for gun running, murder, and corruption. Been investigating you for months. Jake here's been feeding us evidence the whole time. Bennett's face twisted. You set me up, Jake, bleeding but standing, met his eyes. No, I just made sure justice caught up with you. For William. And for his daughter. They put Bennett in chains. The deputies, the crooked judge, the whole rotten web. The next morning, Jake placed a folded deed in Emma's hands. Your father's ranch is back where it belongs, he said. Emma's fingers shook as she traced her father's name on the page, realizing this was the first thing in months no one could take from her. Weeks later, Jake was strong enough to sit on the porch. Every evening, Emma read her father's letters to him as the sun went down. Sometimes they laughed. Sometimes they just watched the desert fade into gold, the distance between them shrink in one quiet sunset at a time. By the time the trials in Tucson ended and Bennett was sentenced, no one in Tombstone doubted whose side Emma Carter stood on. 6 months later, she stood in a simple white dress outside St. Paul's Episcopal Church, wildflowers in her hands. The same people who'd watched her fall to her knees in the saloon now watched her walk down the aisle. Jake waited at the altar, scar on his side, eyes full of something softer than anyone had ever seen in him. You once thought I was a monster, he said as they exchanged vows. I'll spend the rest of my life proving I can be your safe place instead. Emma smiled through tears. You already were, even when I didn't know it. They kissed. As husband and wife while the Arizona sunset painted the sky orange and gold. Outside the ranch gate, Emma hammered the last nail into a new sign, Carter Thornton Ranch. Sometimes the people who look like villains are actually heroes in disguise. Sometimes protection looks like cruelty. And sometimes love means being willing to be hated if it keeps the person you love alive. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done in Emma's place? Could you trust a man who seemed that cruel? Until next time, remember, real strength isn't about power. It's about sacrifice and keeping your promises, even when no one's watching.